Everyone Talk. Having you in our program and working in close cooperation with you and with the Hamad bin Khalifa University is always an amazing experience. We greatly appreciate your immense and valuable efforts, and thank you so much for being with us today. So today's session will highlight one of the prioritized and dominant aspects in the contemporary international discussions, which is volunteerism for sustainable education. This topic, it was critically evaluated as a policy and adopted as one of the SDG's goals. This goal mainly aimed to ensure that all individuals, male and female, complete free, equitable, and quality education, which lead to relevant learning outcomes. So across the globe, young people are standing up for the right of everyone to access free, inclusive, good and quality education. This effort needs support from different actors in the international arena, starting from governments, institutions, societies, and even individuals. And the aim of this session is mainly to understand how volunteerism enhances the fourth SDG's goal, which is education, and how volunteers can advocate for better learning opportunities and prioritizing education. So, dear participants, without further ado, I would like to introduce our esteemed speaker, Dr. Evren Tok. So Dr. Evren Tok is Assistant Dean of Innovation and Community Advancement, College of Islamic Studies at Hamad bin Khalifa University in Doha, Qatar. He is Associate Professor and Program Coordinator, Master Program in Islam and Global Affairs. He is Co-Director and Research Clusters of College of Islamic Studies. He is Assistant Professor and Program Coordinator in Public Policy in Islam Program, Qatar Faculty of Islamic Studies at Hamad bin Khalifa University, Doha, Qatar. Dr. Evren holds professional certificate on leading with ethics and sustainable development goals from United Nations Institute for Training and Research in cooperation with Leeds University and University of Colorado. He is graduated from Harvard Law School Institute for Global Law and Policy. He has a collaborative PhD in Public Policy Administration and Political Economy from Carleton University, Ottawa, Canada. He also has a master's degree from Institute of Political Economy, Carleton University, Ottawa also. He has a bachelor's degree in economics from Koç University from Turkey. Dr. Tok published several books on different topics, like policy making in transforming states, the case of Qatar, a book about global governance and Muslim organizations, another book on innovating South-South cooperation, policies, modalities, and challenges, another book, mashallah, on conceptualizing entrepreneurship, education, and global dynamics from Qatari experiences, and the last one is the entrepreneurialism in higher education. So, mashallah, Dr. Evren has a very rich CV, full of achievements. It was really hard to summarize it. Dr. Evren, I would like to give you the floor. Please, the floor is yours. Could you please open the mic?
Yeah, so it's one of the problems of technicality here. Thank you so much for your kind words. Like I feel really flattered, and I really appreciate sharing all these. Like I'm trying to do my best as a scholar and also as a kind of like a potential intellectual, and I totally kind of like sympathize with the difficulties of the youth right now it's getting more and more difficult. The opportunities are kind of like getting more and more scarce, actually. Although on the one hand, there are more things that we can do, but I think that because of so many reasons, our capacity to maneuver is kind of like is kind of diminished, not just for COVID or something, but also in general. So as scholars, I always try to kind of give priority to empowerment of the youth. And I know that it's getting more and more, scholarships are decreasing, and it's not new. It's just this in past 15, 20 years, you can see there's so many actually problems in the world economy, and like this whole neoliberal capitalism, like the states are retrenching. There's nationalisms are kind of like so many problems facing the youth. So I sincerely feel that we have to support the youth in any possibility that we can. So for that reason, I really cherish and admire what you do as Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum. And I've always really admired and really enjoyed all of our collaborations, including this one. And of course, looking forward to having the next ones as well. MashaAllah, you're attracting a very vibrant, very kind of high quality, enthusiastic, passionate, compassionate youth across the world. And I really appreciate the opportunity that you guys have given to me today twice to talk to the colleagues, the representatives of youth from different parts of the world. And I'm really grateful. So shall I start the presentation? I always kind of hesitate because under normal circumstances, I always like to start with like an introductory session. Like I also want to get to know the people in the room. However, it's almost impossible to do it. Because
of the number, we have right now 85 participants, but as you want, Dr. Evren.
No, I mean, if we give 20 seconds to each of them, we'll consume time. So,
Yes.
Let's kind of let's try. Let's make. So you introduce me. That's why there's like an estimate right now. I feel they know too much about me. I also want to get to know about them. But let me try to get to know them a bit more on the way. And we have 2 sessions, and I try to actually incorporate a lot of interactive sessions. And also, even after these sessions, I try to incorporate some items that we can still keep in touch, that I'll be sharing with you guys. And so based on that, I think we will have a chance to get to know each other a bit more. So
yes,
right
for sure.
now,
We have the question answer session. We will give them the floor to speak and to introduce themselves.
Excellent. Perfect. So let me start my presentation then. You guys can see the presentation because I don't see my screen, but I only see my presentation. You guys see it or not?
Right now we cannot see it. You can just share it through this icon, share screen.
I did. I didn't? Sorry.
Right now I cannot see it.
Okay, sorry. I cannot do it because I always get this message that admit participants, so that's why it's kind of preventing me to share the screen for some reason.
Let me ask the assistant of Mr. Sulaiman if he can help.
I think yes.
Dr. Toka, I think we are going.
Yes, now we can see it.
Okay, what do you guys see here? Let me start with this question.
Heart.
Heart.
Yeah, a heart.
So I'm starting with this because I know that you guys have been learning a lot about volunteerism, but I am essentially, I don't put it in the CV much, but I am essentially like an educational designer. So I design spaces for education, experiential, non-experiential, etc. And I will try to showcase a bit later, but I also try to come up with some pedagogies in which students actually can work with some metaphors. Like, for instance, I have this one interesting session about around 12 hours about the brain and how, but the thing is, I'm not a neurologist, but the thing is still, in today's world, we need, especially for the youth, to make things a bit more concrete, we have to utilize metaphors, symbols, so that you can better connect. So I have been thinking about volunteerism and who is a volunteer. And in today's session, I will not teach you the history or like what SDGs are and technicality. I will just try to reach out to your hearts, and I will try to actually, like this heart, and I will try to actually kind of like share with you how and why volunteers get to be volunteers, why people conduct volunteerism, and what kind of mindsets and values are instrumental in actually taking things that are problematic to us, and then we kind of process them as a volunteer, and then kind of like reflect back to the community in a kind of like a positive way. And it's not just the kind of like, I don't want to fall into that kind of cliche where, okay, this is the heart of the society. It's like, because it's so central, it's so important. Let's kind of cut that part, because that's not true. No, like, unfortunately, not many people see volunteerism as the heart of the society. They think it's epiphenomenal, that they believe it's actually, it's not enough money making. It's just why people do that. And, you know, that there's so much stigma. But in order to bring stigma, we have to be realistic. I prefer a better way to kind of use a metaphor of the heart for to describe what volunteerism is about. As you know, the heart has 4 openings, right? The 4 kind of areas where it gets the blood, and then kind of gets the blood, and then cleans it, and then afterwards gives it back to the kind of the body, right? So think about, yes, volunteerism is like heart beating. So this actually, let's see, it's like this is supposed to beat, by the way, for some reason. It's not beating, but okay, I lost my presentation. See that it's so beating. So each time it beats, actually, it cleans the blood, right? It takes the blood, cleans it, and gives it to the lungs. So volunteerism has this kind of function that it tries to clean, of course, metaphorically, clean some problems that the states, governments, and the markets cannot essentially fix. So the volunteerism being the heart of a society is actually coming from this function. It is a process, right? So it is not the kind of the concrete thing that you do, but it's actually what it represents for the society, and it's a specific function. I wish I could do this a bit more question and answer, but if we were in a chance to be in the same room, my next question would be to you actually, is that, is there like an ideal volunteer? Who is a volunteer? And if I were to ask you, because it's interesting, if I ask you who is the most prominent businessman that you like, you would tell me, you know, like the guy Elon Musk, or you would tell me like, okay, I like Bill Gates, I like Woods, and you know, like you can tell me a lot. But if I ask you, who is your hero, like volunteer? I think this question is not that easy for us to answer, right? And I think there's a reason for that. Why volunteers don't get enough credit that they deserve, right? Think about it. So I made it kind of like, in the past few years, I've been actually like trying to understand, trying to kind of like find out if there are actually some kind of role model volunteers that we can think of, and we can actually learn from their experience. By the way, if you know, if anyone has a kind of like a point about this, please let me know. Is there like, I cannot for some reason see the comments. I don't even know if it's open. Yes, I think it's open, right?
The comments are in the chat box on the right.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyone actually can write here. Mother Teresa is my hero.
Yes.
Eddie is my hero. Okay, excellent. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. This is good. So thinking of, because if we want to understand the ideational, the value-based, the ethical and moral characteristics and qualities of volunteers to make kind of to really understand what they do and why they do. Lubana has actually mentioned it's easy to think of leaders more than volunteers, but not every leader is a volunteer, right? Or not every volunteer is a leader. So there's a kind of like a complexity over there. But I can get your point, to be honest with you. Thomas Sankara is my hero. That's good one. But my point is, yes, we can come up with some kind of names, but not as much as businessmen, not as much as entrepreneurs. So I will do something next, actually, that I believe it might be interesting. There's something wrong with my presentation, by the way, for sure. Yes. Does anyone know this gentleman? Does he look familiar? He shouldn't look familiar because this is a very like unknown gentleman who was his name is Mustafa, and he lived in like in 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And but what is interesting about him actually is that is there anyone Turkish here who can read Turkish? If you can read Turkish, you can actually understand this like this is like a mobile library service. So this gentleman actually, he was a public servant, okay? This gentleman on the right-hand side, Mustafa. So he was a public servant, and he was born in 1920. And when he finished the university in 1942, he graduated from university in Ankara, actually, on public administration. And then afterwards, he got into the government in the municipality. They kind of he was assigned to a work in the inner Anatolia, a place called Ürgüp. You may know in the kind of the Cappadocia region in Turkey. And then he was working in the municipality, and but he realized there's a library and no one goes to library, okay? And then voluntarily he started to kind of like take some of the books, put them actually in these kind of like luggages, and he kind of had like a small donkey, and then he tried to actually create this mobile library by using his donkey, and he took them to different places. Like for instance, like this one. This is like a book rental, like a chest, like it's like a sanduk is like a box. Okay, so you can see actually that he started to rent these books to different people. And why I'm sharing this with you guys? This is another picture of him. Actually, this is all in 1940s. Imagine. And then he realized that actually there is not enough women who are borrowing the books. So he was taking them to different, like he was literally like walking to different villages across the inner Anatolia region. And he was actually sharing these books, and he was actually loaning them to different people. And then in a few weeks coming back and collecting them, okay? And to me, this is actually quite interesting. And of course, he was actually doing this for the kids. You can see that the kids, he started out of campaigns. But what happened afterwards was even more interesting to me, because after a while, he has been charged with a misconduct, because some people in the government said, oh, this guy is kind of like working beyond his scope of work. So he's a government officer. Why is this guy like all over the place doing these books? And then he was charged with a prison and stuff. And then people start to kind of like make a petition. And then like imagine this is happening in mid-40s, right? Like it's kind of like a lot of time ago. But think about the kind of the urge for this, right? That where does this come from? Apparently he has no commercial. He is a public servant. He is risking his job. He is actually taking his personal time, and he is trying to think of it like a heart. He is taking something that's not working, lack of reading books because no one is going to the library. He is processing it, and he's giving clean blood back to the society, like the kind of the function of the heart, right? Not the abstract, not heart as an abstract. But then what happened was, he has been charged. He has been actually kind of like investigated, and they told him that he cannot do that. Like he cannot just take the books and go from one place to another, and because it is not his scope of work. But instead, the public officials told him that they can assign him back to the library of the municipality in Ürgüp, and he can actually work in the library rather than working in the municipality, which he did. But then there was another problem. No one was going there. It was literally empty. You know, it was literally empty. So, and then what he did actually is, again, voluntarily. So this is why I really like this whole idea that some of you actually said leadership and volunteerism. And in fact, I would actually put another item there: leadership, volunteerism, and entrepreneurship, especially social entrepreneurship. These three are kind of quite interconnected. They are kind of intricated, because this gentleman, after a while, what he did was actually that he realized no one is going to the library. So he started to kind of work with some companies. So you remember like these kind of sewing machines, like Singer or Zenith, you know, the old machines. He approached them and he got these machines to the library. So women would actually come to the library, they would read, but they can also work with these machines. They can actually do sewing and they can produce. So imagine the kind of the mentality that the volunteerism is like, and why I am actually so almost like fixated with this whole idea of sustainability of volunteerism, because this example is showing that volunteerism is not just a one-time thing, that you provide a service, you provide a good, or you provide some support to someone or in an institution or someone facing inequality or discrimination. No, volunteerism essentially is about like the function of the blood. You think about a function of the heart, that think about how many times our hearts are doing this kind of this circulation of the blood. It's so many times. It's sustainable. The God created us, Subhanahu wa Ta'ala created us like this, right? So think about it. So volunteerism is similar. Unless volunteerism rests on a sustainable model of provision of services, which, by the way, the West is very actually like leading in this front, because the governments, most of the governments live in UK, in France, in Germany, volunteerism is really institutionalized, and institutionalizing volunteerism creates a lot of options. It creates a lot of stability. It creates a lot of like administrative clarity. So people know, people study, people work, people get paid, right? So it's sustainable. Maybe like in the Middle East and in some other parts of the world, volunteerism is not getting enough attention and support because it's not well institutionalized, right? So in this case, the gentleman, how he made it more sustainable was he started to kind of like bring sewing machines. He started to bring some other activities where people can come to the library, read, but at the same time produce. And this became almost successful. And then he got other problems and stuff. But to me, this gentleman, his precise name is Mustafa Güzelgöz, like it's like, and he's known as the librarian with a donkey. So to me, like I think of his example as a kind of really good example of sustainability in volunteerism. So speaking of sustainability, one of the kind of subsections of this presentation today was about SDG education and global citizenship. And to me, this is really this is something quite dear to me, because I am also running a 5-year-long research grant, producing curriculum and educational modalities to teach sustainable development goals education and global citizenship education to young generations. But the question is how to teach it. And volunteerism and the sustainability of volunteerism is one of the really important elements for it. And if you want to do something new, you have to kind of first explain to people what's not working. And I had 2 presentations. I'm not sure which one is that, but universal values and volunteerism. I think it's one of the titles. In fact, this was supposed to be my kind of like entry point to this presentation, that I don't believe that universal values will do the job. they're important. None of us can deny the importance of creating a global framework of action, like Sustainable Development Goals. Before, maybe you don't remember, but Millennium Development Goals, this whole idea of global citizenship, like what are some of the global goals, global values that everybody needs to be cognizant of? These days, we are all sharing the same global goal, right? We need a world in which we can fight with the COVID-19 in a collective way. This is a global goal. But every country, every locality needs to understand and create its own kind of like tailored and customized perspective and practice. Otherwise, the global goals will not kind of like will not be succeeded, right? So, but then that's a different story. But what matters to me is, how can we teach values that are universal to the youth, but at the same time, we expect them to be sensitive to problems around them? Because most of the things happening around ourselves are kind of like local, right? I mean, if I go out right now, I will see the kind of the supermarket or the park, the people around me. When I go out, I'm not gonna go and see the people in Argentina, right? So that's simple. So, but I still have to kind of like make this connection. So I cannot just say that, okay, I don't care. No, I can't do that. In this world, I can't. So people devised this kind of this education for sustainable development goals, which is something like this. And UNESCO and UNICEF have been forerunners on this. And now what I want to show you here is this problem, actually. They talk about 3 objectives of education, which I believe these 3 objectives are critical for volunteerism as well. First of all, what you know. This is the cognitive part. Think about this from the perspective of a volunteer, or how to become a volunteer, or what volunteer does. Understand the issue and its causes and impacts. It could be about anything like gender discrimination or violence or unemployment, inequality, like terrorism, or it could be about health, it could be about pollution, it could be about environmental degradation, it could be about anything. What you feel about it, this is the important part. Like, how do you actually kind of show sympathy, empathize with others who are affected? Because this is one of the criticisms to the Western model of volunteerism, in the sense that because it is really like so, in a Max Weberian sense, so institutionalized, volunteers don't really sympathize with the people that they are serving. So that's a kind of a problem, right? If you don't sympathize, if you don't empathize with the people that you are helping, then it's quite actually like contradictory. You need to kind of like understand that this contradiction might eventually kind of affect the way you tackle the situations. So cognitive, emotional, and behavioral. So how do you take action? So this is the part that the volunteer wants to be a volunteer. So how can you implement an action that contributes to the solution of the issue? So if you look at this report or similar ones, education, like UN stuff, which I admire, by the way, I work with the UN, that's no problem. But still, there's a problem with the methodology, that when they showcase these like items as the kind of the, okay, these are the 3 goals of like sustainable education, sustainability education, or volunteerism, then it's a problem, because we don't know how these things actually will play out in different localities, in different contexts. So they also talk about some competencies like empathizing, critical thinking, conflict resolution, sense of security, etc. Or share of universal values like human rights, peace, and justice, respect for diversity. The same thing happens. So where do we go from this point onwards? So how can we kind of like take these competencies? Okay, we can teach these competencies to students, to youth, but then how do we ensure that these competencies affect their surroundings? How they can actually utilize them? How can they actually benefit from them? How can they be practiced? So for that, the grant that I'm working on actually is trying to look at 4 different elements: ethical sensitivity, ethical judgment, ethical focus, and ethical action. And the process that we want to do for, this is one of my visuals, And I really like it because it's about localizing something. It's about contextualizing these goals into a specific setting. And how can we become cognizant of moral values that we can produce some common good, not just individual good, right? Because there's so many people who do volunteerism just for earning money, just to kind of pay their bills. And we don't want that only. Of course, it's important, but not just for money. And then how can we apply criteria based on ethical and moral values? And how can we be activists and exercise our values to kind of support our communities as well? And this requires 4 different elements. And I believe in today's sessions, you will see different aspects of this ethical sensitivity, ethical judgment, ethical focus, and ethical action. So, and when I talk about ethics, I'm not talking about a specific type of ethics. I'm talking about the kind of the value systems that individuals embrace and use in order to actually create a value added, in order to kind of support their environment, in order to actually find out solutions, in order to perform the function of the heart. Take a problem, process, and give it back. Take a problem, process, and kind of circulates. And without, I believe personally that it may, some people may agree or disagree, I don't know, but I believe that without this value-based and ethical and moral dimension integrated into volunteerism, it's difficult to sustain it. So back to the heart. And I will actually briefly showcase you an event that we have. I told you that I designed spaces. And in September 2019, we produced something called Maker Majlis. And we tried to bring together Qatar's national vision, sustainable development goals, and Islamic perspectives. And this was interesting because in a big, large space in our campus, actually, we brought together so many different organizations, but we wanted them to kind of to apply what they do. Like, for instance, we had actually and of course, we can say what is Maker, what is Majlis. Maker is actually coming from making things. It's coming from the maker movement that people in these times actually that universities apply experiential techniques, that in the sense that it's not just theoretical knowledge, but you also help the youth to actually experience things. Like, for instance, this was an area where we were having TEDx talks. This is an area where people were actually playing SDG games, and this was like a Majlis area where people were discussing. Like, this was actually like a kind of Doha debates where inside of this they were connecting to around 16 different places in the world, and they were connecting to like refugee camps, and there's a screen inside. And this was a part actually where the entrepreneurs they were trying to find solutions to some kind of problems of refugees. This was actually like a Qatar Red Crescent. They built a real refugee camp, and we had like more than 1,000 students actually who came to the refugee camps. This is our campus. This is like a mini refugee camp, and with different tents, and they get sensitivity. So this is what I'm talking about. Here in Qatar, how many or in other parts of the world, how many students, how many young people actually they know what it means or what it takes to be a refugee? How can they write or think if you are studying international relations or conflict resolution, conflict transformation, whatever, and if you're writing a paper about refugees, how can you write a real actually paper without knowing what it means to be a refugee? I know you can. I'm not saying they can't, but still, if you want to make change, we want to help the students to get this sensitivity. So that is why this is experiential learning experience. People get in, they get the sensitivity, and then afterwards they go inside. We provide them different tools, and you can see actually here, for instance, we designed a space in which, like, for instance, Islamic perspectives to sustainable development goals, how different ayats and hadith, for instance, are connected to SDGs, sustainable development goals. So this way, students feel that there is a religious perspective, there is a faith-based perspective to volunteerism. It's not just about just kind of like some people in the West, they put some 17 goals and then we are just becoming global citizens. No, that is actually, if something is universal, there has to be something peculiar. There has to be something particularistic about it as well, because universal is not just a kind of like one size fits all. It's made out of so many different particulars, the different like specificities. And these were different partners. We had around 20 partners, including ICYF. See, the high school kids actually are getting sensitivity training by, and this is actually a lady. She runs a school here for students with special needs, actually. So they and then students understand what they do. This part was the botanic garden, chronic botanic garden, and you can see different social entrepreneurship organizations. This was a big space where people understand and learn skills, and then they try to find solutions to apply. About entrepreneurship, about volunteerism. UN Volunteers was also one of our partners. We really enjoyed getting their sessions, etc. So my point is, I really believe in the importance of experiential learning, and that's why, like, I kind of put this as sustainability for volunteerism, because if we don't teach experiential techniques to students, look at the number of students coming, like the schools flooding into this, right? So that the whole idea was to kind of give them sensitivity. The point here is like volunteerism is similar. So people sometimes think of kind of they develop stigmas, or they kind of certain perceptions of volunteerism because they don't know. So the question is for the young generation is, how can we collectively produce some educational models in which the youth experiences volunteerism in a more concrete and practical way, and develop techniques and develop actually perspectives they can support the community. So this is actually pretty much at the core of what I've been doing. So some students are scared of that. They say, okay, there's an opportunity. I will go and do my kind of volunteership here or internship here. I will go and do my practicum here. But then sometimes we find ourselves in those kind of like categories and boxes that we expect people to give us tasks, and then okay, go and help this family or do this. But this is important, of course, but also try to come up with your own models. Try to diagnose, remember the kind of the perspectives, ethical sensitivity, the moral value-based sensitivity. You don't possess the same values that others possess, which means that you might come up with a perspective and a solution that another person may never ever be able to come up with. So that is the beauty of experiential learning and teaching, actually. So next part, I'm running out of time. So what I want to do right now is I will leave some of this stuff for the next session. And what I want to do now is I have this interactive session here, okay? This is one of the things I do is Lego Serious Play. I'm not sure if you have heard about Lego Serious Play, but this is essentially coming from that area. So what we do here is, if you had a superpower, what superpower? You know the superheroes, like right, Superman, Iron Man. Each superhero has a like a power they use, right? Different one, like a Spider-Man and like a, and of course there's like a Hulk, right? Like think about them. Of course, there are like a female superheroes as well, you know, like so gender balance. Each superhero has a different power. Each superhero has a different problem to solve. Each superhero has different values. This SDG part, leave it for now. But what I want you to do right now is, I want you guys to kind of insert, first of all, your superhero name here. I'm gonna share with you a link. This is the link, like HTTPS. Like I will actually go there right now. This one. Yes. Can you see the link? I'm sharing the link to our chat. I'm sharing the link to the chat, actually. Okay. If I can find the chat. I keep, oh yeah, here. Oh, by mistake, I sent Jeren.
Can you send it to me? I will share it.
Okay, I send it to you. So I need everyone to go to the site and let's do this exercise, and then afterwards we can just finish for this session. Full screen. So you can, and others actually can vote for them. So if you're a volunteer, but you are also a superhero, what kind of superpower would you like to have? So if you open this, what you need to do is very simple. If you double click, you can put your text. So now we can try to populate. You can do it in two ways, either this or you can also, there's a plus sign here. You can also do that. Let's see who is going to do the first one.
I think Miss Merve shared the link via WhatsApp group. So if you cannot copy paste from here, you can just go to your WhatsApp group and check it.
Tongue. But I'm asking for this is the part for the superpower. So I'm deleting this one. Okay. So this is the part for your superpower. Sorry. This is the part, what values that your superhero possess. Hi. Some people said hi, actually. Yeah. What is your superpower? Work under pressure. Excellent. What else? What world problem teaching? Learning. Make them a bit smaller. Wow. Multitasking, the ability to lead my fellows in a smooth way. Negotiating. Wow, communication. You guys are amazing, seriously. We're almost filling this out. My superhero is my parents. That's really interesting. That's very nice, actually. Very kind of you. Love. I love learning. So that's your superpower. Excellent. Fast learning. See, this is amazing to hear, right? I mean, and what problem that you want to solve? Famine. It's climate change. Excellent. My superhero is Abu Bakr. He possesses generosity, kindness, and care. That's excellent. I'll try to actually kind of fast learning. Sheikh Anta Diop. You can actually create your own superhero, by the way. It's another. Urban forestry and climate change, social issues, famine, poverty. Okay, now my next question is, can you guys help me out with this? What values do you have? Empathy. What else? Patience, empathy. Excellent. What else? And here on the world problem, I can see prejudice. It's more like here, right? Excellent. Cool. I can see honesty all the time. Like honest. It's interesting that so many of you are at all. There's actually like there's more. Superhero is Allah. Honesty to create inclusive work. Patience and determination. Never give up. Commitment, cooperation, listening, poverty. Wow. I'm just trying to see if there's a pattern. Superpower, speaking 5 languages. Très bien. And I can see some of you are putting this kind of connections, which is really excellent, by the way. Access quality education for orphans and underprivileged. Poverty. My superhero is Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Excellent. Wow. It's really, I think you guys came up with really interesting stuff, and we'll do another version of this in the next session as well. And I will share with you the list. I will organize it. I will share with you so you can see like how hundreds of you. SDG number 4. SDGs I will kind of leave it in the values taught in Islam. That's good. Yeah. I want to solve gender inequality issues. To give everyone their rights, not to oppress. Okay. It's really interesting. It's really actually like so exciting to see like so many young people. My superhero is Nelson Mandela. Okay, excellent. Health, education, peace, and development. I love adding value to myself and people around me. Excellent. I think we kind of like captured a lot. I can see now, guys, like you're a big group, but you can see the kind of the diversity. It's like really like it's a very diverse group, and it's really fantastic to see that so many of you actually have different perspectives on this. So what I'm gonna do actually right now is I'll just stop here, and if that's okay, I'll just kind of like we can finish with the Q&A. And I want to leave some of my stuff for the next session, which I want to do a bit more interactive.
Okay. Thank you so much for this wonderful lecture, Dr. Evren.
I hope they enjoyed.
I'm sure they enjoyed, and for providing us with this information and thoughts. I believe it was a vital and important asset for the program content. The metaphor you gave us about heart and how heart and volunteer have the same function, which is cleaning. This metaphor can reflect a lot of ideas about the field. Also, the Giziji Kutubhanisi or mobile library example is very significant, showing us how a humble man working individually with simple resources in helping people to learn and to read without expecting any returns. You mentioned also how volunteerism, leadership, and entrepreneurship are interconnected, and to which extent social entrepreneurship can produce a social and intellectual capital in the states and societies. You highlighted the importance and the significance of value system in volunteerism. Also, you shared with us the Maker Majlis initiative, which is an innovative space where focuses fashion of global goals, Qatar National Vision 2030, and Islam and Faith. I like it also the name of Majlis, which reflects the Arab and Eastern culture. And
Yeah.
I advise our participants to visit Ahmad bin Khalifa University and Maker Majlis website to know more about the initiative and to benefit from it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Dr. Evren.
Yeah. Everything, by the way, on the Maker Majlis website, I just shared with you. If you would like to share with them, that would be great.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, I will share it immediately. So now I would like to open the floor for the question answer session. I'm sure a lot of participants have a lot of questions for you. We will start with Karim Kabari from Qatar and Egypt.
Oh,
Assalamu alaikum, Professor.
alaikum assalam.
According to achieving the MDGs or recently the SDGs, I do agree with you that it's impossible just to work it only on the values. But if we look at the larger image of the competencies, so the competency is like 4 elements: the knowledge, the skill, the value, and the attitude. So if we have the knowledge, and of course we have to apply this on ourselves before delivering it, because if the competency is not applying on the educator or on the person who's trying to deliver it, it will not happen. So if you talk about the knowledge, myself first should know the knowledge about the SDGs and everything is related to it, which is Islamic knowledge, civic knowledge, environmental knowledge, and ATC. And we're talking about the attitude. What is my attitude as a person who wants to deliver to the students? So if I really truly believe in it, it will make like more effective benefit for them. So for example, if I'm talking about the environment and have to protect the environment, and on the other hand, I'm using all the plastic without recycling, or I'm abusing the environment in a way or another, I will not be that honest for them, and they will not be see this honesty from what I'm delivering. And if you're talking about the skill, and this is the important thing you mentioned, that the implementation phase, students needs to practice it. Student needs to do things and to really feel how it's made and how it's done, so they can understand. And it's not just about the values, not just about having this theoretical, fantasy idea about this ideal world with everything is going smooth. They have to really witness it, and they have to feel it, and they have to implement it. And when we talk about all the facts of the competencies, and we can integrate it to any curriculum, it doesn't matter which subject it is, it will have the effective result that we need, so we can give it to the students, so it will be able to implement it. So can we achieve the goals? Thank you.
It was more like a kind of like a nice comment, right? Because if you can summarize the question, I would really appreciate, because like maybe I missed, but what specific question? Like
no, there was no question. It was like an adding.
What you are saying is like the music to my ears. So
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Shall we proceed to another question? If you don't have
the gentleman is mashallah. I don't have anything to say. He's like music to my ears. So it's fantastic.
So the next question will be from Tastage Donkfakwile. I hope that I pronounced the name in the right way.
Yeah,
Tastage?
Exactly. Thank you very much for giving me the floor. I'll start by saying hello to everyone on board. Thank you equally for the presentation, and I'm really delighted to listen to you once more after our stay in Qatar. I still remember you animated a workshop, a wonderful workshop, and today this one was wonderful because it stands out of the previous workshop has been following, given you use images to transfer knowledge, which I see very good. Now I wish to ask, mindful of your experience, I wish to know some of the challenges you have gone through, some of your challenges, and I wish to know how you were able to overcome them.
What kind of challenges? Like, sorry, personal? Like, I missed that part.
What are the challenges you encountered on your way, you were confronted to, and how did you overcome them?
You mean as a person, as an individual?
Yeah, an individual question. I wish to know, because looking at his profile, it is really rich. I wish to know how he were able to overcome all the challenges so much that he reached to this particular level where he is.
Oh, it's I don't know what to say directly, because it's maybe I don't see challenges as the challenges. Like sometimes people get bogged down I lost my father at very early ages, and I'm a mix of two different countries. So I kind of like my whole childhood was like full of challenges, like literally, and I had to stay away from family for a long time, and like so I maybe my kind of like the way I see it is because I kind of like I was challenged a lot when I was very young, so I kind of neutralized it. And I try to absorb it, like, and I never saw it as a challenge. So, if you're asking me personally, like maybe this is the way I see that challenge is a challenge. So some people exaggerate challenge. They say, okay, there's so challenges on the way. So what? If you just try, so you just try and like and do your best. This and al-baqi ala Allah. Yani you cannot do much. So it's you have a certain destiny. You have like I don't know. I should like share this with you, but because the world is like your fate is just like composed of so many different layers. And things happen at unexpected times. I think the most important thing is, I know it sounds cliche, but never give up. That's the issue. Like never give up. Like for instance, like there was a time that I was literally homeless. Like when I was in Canada. And when I look back, it was disastrous. Like you want to die, you don't want to do anything. So personally, but you know something is going to happen. So I think it's just a matter of like looking at the problem, okay, and then afterwards take something use that problem as an opportunity. So I know it's challenging, but it's doable, because if you're here right now in this session, it means that everyone, I think 95 people in this session, means that everybody here has some level of sense of values that are critical for humanity. You could have been watching Netflix right now. You could have been doing something else, but no, you aren't doing that. So which means that you have the, you know, that's it's, this is actually, I think, coming from Exodus, from the Bible, that it talks about the epiphany, eyes of epiphany. So everybody has eyes, but not everybody has the eyes of epiphany, which means that if you utilize the eye in a way that it is always seeking for epiphany rather than kind of demoralization. So it's important. Look for that epiphany always, like, so something that leverages you, something that, so if you're bogged down, if you see a challenge, use your eyes of epiphany, like see something that will increase your mode, see something that will actually give you hope, see something that will actually leverage you, because you're in a path and you don't know your path. Only Allah knows, the God knows your path. So think about this way. This is what I do.
Thank you. Next question from Abdul Latif Lawal from Nigeria.
Yeah, thank you. So my question is, I am into volunteerism and advocacy for good leadership, and at the same time, I'm a social enterprise. So as a young person like myself, who is from a very low background, just trying to build things up, what advice can you give and someone integrate these things together, putting in mind the political atmosphere we are, and how businesses, social enterprises can be so connected to leadership. So if I'm advocating for good leadership and I'm into volunteerism and I have social enterprise, what best advice can you give on that, so as to integrate the three together without it having a negative impact on me? Because you advise us to actually work on these three, which is actually the things I'm already working on currently. Thank you.
I felt that there was a small cut when you were talking on my screen. Can you please just tell the last 20 seconds?
Okay, so what I said is that, like, in a country like Nigeria here, due to our political atmosphere, I'm into leadership, advocating for good leadership, and leading some group of people as well. and I'm also into volunteerism. And at the same time, I have a social enterprise I am building. So for a young person like me who has a very low background, how best can you advise us to integrate these three things without it fighting back? You might be working on your social enterprise, and maybe your leadership, type of leadership, or the way you challenge leaders is quite not convincing to them. It can be very challenging to your business and to your volunteerism. So how best can you integrate these three things together and work it out perfectly?
I got what you mean. I can see a lot of colleagues actually who are in similar situations, and I believe that you cannot do everything. So first of all, don't put yourself in a situation that there is a lot of expectations on you, and then afterwards, like you have like limited amount of time, and you have 24 hours in a day, and half of it is gone because of sleep, because of like going around, transportation, and this, and like, I mean, literally we are kind of like limited by effort and energy and time, and there's so many limitations. So you cannot be hard on yourself. This is one of the mistakes that a lot of people are doing. I overwork, for instance. I work like a lot in a day, 14 hours a day, but it's fine. I don't mind, because I don't now these days, like you cannot go out, etc. But in a normal setting, when I remember when I was in Canada, it wasn't the case, because you go out, you take the bus, you lose the time and stuff, you know. So we all have like limitations. So remember that we have limitations. This is very important, and you need to give priority. Like maybe if you have a social enterprise, that social enterprise will grow, and after it grows, it will create some volunteerism opportunities, and then those opportunities will help you to kind of create some soft power to affect the leaders. So you have a kind of like a temporal, like a time-based, like sequential kind of line, you know, like of arranging things. I think I can see you guys also have a session with Dr. Nada, so Dr. Hana Al-Banna in the next few days, or maybe after the 8th, I cannot remember. She talks about project management, for instance. So that's actually a good area that you can learn from her. She's really good. And it's all about giving priorities, and also operationalizing your work, in the sense that dividing your work into specific tasks and processes and connections. So you can always benefit from connectivities, in the sense that maybe there's another person who is building a company. Why don't you go and do something together? If, for instance, like building a company is more important than the other ones, do it first, grow, and give it the time. So I know there's a lot of pressure on us, right? But again, you need to prioritize not just the work, but you also need to prioritize the sustainable modality. So what creates sustainability in terms of what you want to produce? The company, or the political influence, or the social enterprise, or volunteering opportunities. So think about that, because this is not just you. This is for everyone, every organization, even big ones. They have to be sustainable.
Thank you.
I hope it kind of explains your situation, like it helps. Yeah.
Next question from Suraji Al-Hassan from Ghana.
Okay. Hello.
Hi.
Okay. Prof, thank you so much for such a wonderful delivery, because it was a very nice thing. Some of us, we are trying to pay more attention, but our network could not give us that chance. But in all, thank you so much. With the one I got to follow, so I just want to know, my friend was asking the same question I wanted to ask, because some of us, we have put in that kind of social intervention on our shoulders so that we can do something little in our various remote areas. But we have such challenges, which you spoke about. So my friend raised that topic that I like so much, and your answer couldn't hit what I wanted to. So please, if you can talk something little on that again, concerning combining this political influence and our social work and other activities, so that at the end of the day, we can achieve something best in volunteerism instead of any other way, or instead of any influence from the political area. So that is what I would like to ask again. Thank you so much.
I don't know how to add on to this, but maybe I can give you this example. Like, for instance, I want to have students, okay? Like, I'm running a master's program. If any of you is interested to have a master's in Islam and global affairs, you are more than welcome to apply next year, because this year is finished. But I want to give you an example. In the past 5-6 years, our scholarships have been decreasing, okay? So, but I know that I do a lot of events, a lot of like youth development, capacity building, and opportunities for students. Like I know that like some of the students I have graduated, actually they built companies and they kind of even sold them for $1 million. So like none of this happened if we weren't together. So you see what I mean? So, but if you don't have a master's program, if that master's program wasn't established, nothing would have happened. So my point is, find the first move that will lead to other opportunities. Like in my case, starting a master's program, recruiting students, finding money for it, applying for research grants. Believe me, even in like everybody thinks that in Qatar there's so much money and stuff, but it's not the case at all. There are like the system is pushing us to kind of create like a lot of scarcity, like to kind of solve problems, even in monetary problems. So they don't give you money. No one is giving you money today. Literally, you have to actually find a way to create sources, to create your own opportunities. It's not. I mean, even I can tell you, things are even tougher. Like in North America, maybe even it's slightly better in Europe, because in Europe there's so many youth initiatives like Erasmus programs and 6 frameworks, and like that there's ability for NGOs, trainings, and etc. In the Middle East, there's more vibrancy. There's UN volunteers and other things. So, look, whatever you are doing around, ICYF has all these awards. You know, we have some awards, other programs. So find out. My point is this: there are opportunities. There are limitations, but there are opportunities. Among the opportunities, identify the one that will provide you the highest rate of return. That's a skill. That's actually like because for me, for instance, if I want to have international students, I have to find money for them. That's simple. I have to go to companies, I have to go to this and that, or apply for grants, and then only after that. So do the same. Maybe there's a government support system. Maybe there's actually some funding to initiate something. Maybe you can open a online initiative, like supporting a cause, or like online initiative, maybe based on social media. But look, don't be obsessed with money. Don't think that actually financial resource is the most important resource. Most of the times, financial resource is not the most important resource. It's the human resource is more important, I believe. If you find, look, if you have $100,000, but you don't know any idea how to create impact in the world, there's no meaning for it. But if you have $1,000, but if you have 10 really good people with good morality, who have great ideas, vibrant, energetic, collaborative, cooperative, with some different capacities, that money is, you can do a lot. This is what I do. Like my students, they start to social enterprises. Like last year, we built this company with where we can actually create some opportunities for the people in prisons, so they can actually do some work when they're in the prisons. Or many other things like sustainability, like waste management, and so what you need to do actually is that find something that appeals to people. That is why I'm talking about the morality. Like if you are living in an environment where the religion and faith is so important, like actually this is going to be the first thing in the second presentation, like why in certain locations volunteerism is more important, whereas in some other locations volunteerism is less important. What makes the difference? So that's going to be in the second part. But I know that it's not a clear answer, but also believe that there's no answer. The answer is just in you. The answer is just in what you do. Who do you talk to? How do you spend your time? How do you make use of your time? So think about it. Find kind of this collective capacity that you can make a difference. It's not just something individual.
Thank you, Dr. Aaron. Very nice and inspiring advice. Now we have a question from Abdulrahman Olalekan from Nigeria.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Firstly, let me appreciate the speaker, like he has spoken and he has spoken well. Let me tell you simply, the reason why I enjoy this lecture more is because it is audience oriented, and that speaks volume about your teaching skills. I really appreciate the lecture. Well, I do not really have a question. I have an additional comment to make with regards to volunteerism. Now, when we talk about volunteerism, well, to me, I see it as a service to humanity. And when we talk about the service to humanity, it is what every soul, everyone must do. So volunteerism is not necessarily some set of people putting themselves together. It is what everyone, every living soul must engage in. Extending kindness to your friends, to your neighbor, good behavior. There are types of volunteerism also. So it's not necessarily until you start something big, as little as it is, as the Prophet rightly said, kullu ma'rufin sadaqatu. Every act of kindness is sadaqah. It's kindness. So volunteerism is more of kindness. It's showing kindness to humanity. So everyone should, I believe, that if you actually want to achieve the goal, it's something we should clamor for, that every soul should engage in volunteerism. And volunteerism is not until when you start joining an organization. Volunteerism is extending your service that you know it's required to your neighbor, to your friends, and to your fellow people. That's how to achieve volunteerism. And lastly, in the last question you responded to, talking about the financial aspect, like my brother that asked the question from Ghana or Cameroon, I got it correctly. Yeah. You said something that is so much jealous.
Sorry, Abdulrahman, we cannot hear you very well.
Okay.
Could you please write the question?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now it's clear.
Okay. Can I start from the beginning, or I should continue from where I stopped?
Just continue the question.
Okay, so what I've said is that volunteerism is something every living soul should engage in. So that, and it's not until you join an organization before you volunteer. Extending act of kindness to your neighbor, to your friends, is act of volunteerism, which everyone must engage in. And I was talking about the question that was answered just some moments ago, that financial capacity is not the most important thing, but human capacity. Like, what do you have to offer? What value are you having with you is more important. And that's one thing that is causing issue with my friends, because I'm the type that I engage in a lot of activities and they'll be like, is it bringing money? I said, no. They said, no, I'm not doing it. It's not about money. There are some values that exceed money. So when you come with them, people even cherish it more and it opens more doors for you. So we should learn more of adding values to ourselves rather than seeking for financial. If you have values, it will definitely open door for you. So that's my little contribution. Thank you, Associate Professor, for the lecture. I so much enjoyed the lecture, and I earnestly look forward to the second part of the lecture. Thank you. I remember my humble self, Abdulrahman Olalekan from Nigeria. I'm a legal practitioner. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdulrahman. So it's a comment, Dr. Evan.
Yeah, that's a wonderful comment. Thank you so much.
Okay.
There's one colleague, actually, he asked a couple of times how to be part of Doha debates. I think on their websites, there is some clarification. But they are more like an organization that organizes events, you know. I don't think so. There's a gentleman who asked this question twice, like how to become part of it, but I personally don't know. I can investigate, but if he writes to me directly to my email, maybe I can try it. I'm writing my email here, but if, and I can just try to and this is my Instagram.
Okay.
And so sometimes I reply faster on Instagram, actually. So
Okay, I share it with the audience. Next question will be from Malik from Tunisia. Malik, the floor is yours. Malik? Let me move to Mame Sadeh from Senegal.
Hello, can you hear me now?
yes.
Malik?
Yes.
Okay, I can hear you.
Thank you for this presentation. I want to know, is the level of awareness and knowledge in the world able to help us achieve the sustainable development goals before 2030? And young people, how we can help to achieve these development goals.
So the question is about the level of awareness and how it can help in achieving the SDGs goals, right?
Right.
Okay. And second one, how youth can contribute.
Yes, exactly.
You know, before, this is again something that I wanted to discuss a bit more in the second presentation about this, the SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. Not everyone is talking about it. I think one of the most important qualities of SDGs is that, like, compared to MDGs, Millennium Development Goals before, which was between 2000 and 2015. So now 15 to 30, we have the SDGs. The difference is like the SDGs are more like youth, like inclusive. Not just the youth, but in general, it's more inclusive in terms of different actors, different institutions, different like groups and different civil society organizations, so on and so forth. So there's more room. So they are trying to create more vibrancy around this. They want to make it a bit more inclusive. And I think that kind of bottom-up approach essentially produces more awareness. And it's not necessarily like kind of like a governmental effort to kind of like meet some criteria. So the awareness is not easy, because awareness is like it's again, it's a cognitive realm, right? It's remember the kind of the three issues: the cognitive, socio-emotional, and the behavioral, right? In order to be aware of something, you need to be affected by it. So if you are like right now we are experiencing COVID-19, but if you think about like 5 years ago, 4 years ago, when people were suffering from like the other ones, right? There were some similar viruses, but because we were not hit by them, most of the world actually, only some parts was kind of like affected, not us. So we didn't create that awareness. Even now, actually, imagine this actually, like look at the magnitude of the situation. Most people were like, a lot of scholars, academics were expecting this kind of like a crack in the world system, like big kind of rupture, like what's going to happen. And they were expecting the economic system would actually fall apart. It did a couple of times, and like more than a couple of times, but in the last few years, like since especially 2008 and 2009 crisis was big, and then afterwards 2 years back there's a global crisis, global downturn. But again, people know how to get, you know, everybody's aware of financial problems, but still it's manageable. Most people were expecting a big crackdown because of climate change, that because there has been so much kind of like vibrancy, awareness. Look at the kind of the amount of literature, amount of organizations, like a number of people involved in the climate change, global warming. Look at that 15-year-old girl, Greta Thunberg, and look at the kind of how much attention has been put on climate change and the youth activism towards climate change. So my point is, awareness is important, but it's not enough to act. So same for the SDGs. In general, we can be aware of so many different things, but it doesn't mean that we are going to act towards them. So what needs to be done, like for the youth, I believe, which is I've been telling you guys, is try to come up with perspectives in which you can turn experience into action. Because having an experience, not just your experience, but also other people's experience. That is why I'm telling you human resource is way more important. Like know-how, like knowledge and past experience is way more important than anything else.
Thank you, Dr. Evan. Next question from Mami from Senegal.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, sir, for the presentation. That's very good. My question is about how to become safe about the against the political influence like corruption, because you say that ethical values is necessary to a volunteer. That's why I ask my question. Thank you.
The question is how to be safe. Like that I missed that part. How to be safe in the middle of ethical values, or what kind of safety you are talking about, though? If you can expand on this a bit more.
How to be safe about the political influence like corruption.
Huh. Yeah, that's not an easy question. I mean, that's because corruption is like is placeless, right? I mean, that's an issue. Like it's so global. Like in big organizations, like look at, for instance, like one way, of course, like I mean, every organization has this kind of ethical boards, right? Like for instance, if you want to register in the UN system as a company, as a provider, as a supplier, one of the first things that they require is actually a code of ethics and code of conduct. So we are living in a world where the institutions actually are so cognizant about the importance of ethics, and they institutionalized it in such a clear and technical way that people totally forget about what ethics is about. So, because to me, corruption is a problem of ethics. It's not a of course, it has like economic ramifications, like a lot of economic implications as well. But it's essentially an ethical issue, right? So if a person is okay in terms of like and it's so funny because in 2013 I was in Morocco, like at Hawaiian University, and in France. And there was a conference, and there was a presenter actually, and he was talking about it was a very interesting paper. The professor was talking about that a certain level of corruption is good for an economy that's growing, because and the argument actually is like it's a very strong argument that in fact there's a literature about it that sometimes people are so scared of like doing misconduct, and then afterwards at the end they don't do anything. So certain level of corruption, my point is this, I'm not promoting corruption, but in every society, in every community, in every country, whether US or to Canada or Singapore to anywhere, to Turkey, to anywhere, there are experience of misconduct. But the question is, how do you absorb them? How do you ensure that actually it doesn't create, like, it doesn't change the mindset of people that your system is corrupt? Corruption is a practice, but if the system is corrupted, then that's a real problem. So that's a big difference. So that's something that we all need to understand. Even look at like FIFA or this world soccer, like football organizations, look at the number of like corruption cases. So it's happening. But then one way to do it actually is that's the very essence of what I was telling you guys, right? The ethical sensitivity, because people don't understand that corruption is pretty much like confiscating someone else's right. So you are getting an amount of money or a service or a privilege, whether it's called nepotism, whether it's like populism. Corruption doesn't have to be one person or another. If a leader says, okay, you guys can build a house here, and then it's on government land, but then he or she doesn't allow to others to do it, that's still corruption. Maybe he's not earning, but he's getting political power. He's like, it's populism. or in certain cases nepotism or clientelism, right? There are different versions of it. So corruption is, as a kind of a general concept, it's big, it's loaded. So you need to look at the specific applications of corruption, because some types of corruption are manageable as long as they are absorbed in the system, right? Because every system like has its own problems. Is there a country in the world that without crime? No.
Thank you, Dr. Evren. Next question from Nirmish from Malaysia.
Hello, everybody. Hi. Thank you so much for the interesting sharing session, Professor. So I have a question. Every business model has a corporate social responsibility, or we call it as CSR. On your opinion, what are the suggested measurements for these corporate companies to be eligible as a corporate social responsibility in the terms of volunteering? Thank you.
It's again, thank you so much. This is an excellent point, by the way. Thank you so much for bringing this up, because that is actually the essence of what I was trying to say, that this whole idea of social responsibility is not really well integrated into volunteerism literature and kind of education and capacity building. But then the question is why that's the case? Because most people would argue that corporate social responsibility, especially coming from big corporations, are just kind of like a lip service, right? They're just trying to actually kind of like it's like a small amount of money to compensate for the losers, to compensate for the people who are kind of like excluded or like who couldn't actually sustain. So they kind of feel that's a kind of just an obligation that should be done, but they don't see the merit of it. They just do it for the purpose of doing it. Like, it's so interesting because like 3 years ago, sorry, in 2017, like Qatari government changed the law, and in the past every company was giving its own CSR to a different organization. They had the kind of full autonomy to utilize the kind of the amount for CSR on their own terms. But then the government changed it, and they said that for all the a company cannot spend more than 0.7%, so 7 out of 1,000, I guess, amount of it has to be spent for corporate social responsibility, and then they are not allowed to spend it, and they cannot show it in their budgets, but it has to be given to the government, and the government distributes to different organizations. So to me, that was interesting because they wanted to centralize. I don't know if it's a good or bad, or we still kind of trying to understand the kind of repercussions, but they changed the kind of rules of the game. In the West, someone is sharing the screen, or yeah, okay. Some people do it in like in some countries it's entirely different. But the question is, are you doing corporate social responsibility to really help and to solve an issue? Because according to the government here, they were not. They were just giving the money to a place where actually just kind of not even in need, you know? Like, for instance, it's, you know, the Gates Foundation, they were providing a lot of CSR money in Africa, and they didn't know the context, and they were creating more problems among different tribes because they didn't know the context and the internal kind of politics. They were creating even more conflicts by doing CSR. You see what I mean? So, and I witnessed actually a lot of these similar examples in between 2013 and 2014 and 17. I was leading a research grant about natural resource governance in sub-Saharan Africa. So I was in Sierra Leone and in Freetown, and actually we were investigating the areas that the London mining was actually using. There was a lot of CSR money going from London mining to the kind of local farmers, local people who in agriculture, but that was literally nothing. Like because the soil was poisoned. The lake was actually like kind of totally kind of like no fishing anymore, polluted. So, and then afterwards, you give like we provide you provide a capacity building program for the kids in Sierra Leone, just kind of as a kind of CSR. It doesn't make sense. You are polluting, you are like poisoning the soil. That's the only source of livelihood. You are polluting the kind of the river, and there's no fishing anymore. So you are creating a lot of damage, and yet you are using CSR to kind of, so I still have my photographs actually. They kind of like, they didn't allow us to take photographs, but I was able to get some of them. And I collected, like, I visited like around 12 countries in sub-Saharan Africa at that time to kind of look into different kind of like unethical experience of natural resource governance. It was crazy, like just so unfortunate that CSR is used as a lip service, just to kind of like just to buy the political kind of support. So we need to be careful about that. So
I think we have last question from Isnaira Salim from Philippines.
okay. I can't hear you.
Could you please open your mic, Insaira?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Thank you very much. It's been a very insightful lecture so far. I have a comment and also a question. My comment is when you talk about achieving sustainable and universal goals and the threat that it is not really like we're not able to do it locally. So back in the Philippines, we have this also like a slogan that we really put in mind when we are doing projects, especially volunteerism project, and that is like think global but act local. So yeah, that's really like I wanted to share it with my fellow participants. My question is more on the moral and value-based volunteerism, because you've talked about you've integrated social entrepreneurship into leadership and volunteerism. One of the challenges of sustainable volunteerism now is the arising of the commercialization of volunteers. So I'd like to ask your comment on this aspect.
Can you give me an example of a commercial volunteerism?
So, for example, you've talked about problems of volunteerism as they are not institutionalized. So now there are some organization that arises when you go to Google and you wanted to search for volunteerism. There are so many organizations that allows you to volunteer, but you have to pay for it. So things like that.
Oh, but it's more for students, right? I mean, like, for instance, if you are talking about United Nations volunteers, for instance, like that's we had a lot of talks when they were here for Maker Majlis. Their regional leader here, Jason Pronik, he was talking about this kind of different schemas, like for 6 months, for 3 months. So and we were trying to find out like how they can be like a. So that one is still that's something that actually like it's important to kind of like distinguish the kind of the benefits and the cost and the benefit. So you know, remember I mentioned this whole idea of like the eyes of epiphany. You know, like it's a biblical like a perspective. But the things I like it a lot actually. And the reason I like it actually is that like it kind of helps you to kind of have a critical eye, you know, on different things. You know, so the same thing here. It helps you to kind of like make a kind of a strong analysis of what is important, what is dear to you, what is in your heart, and what will be in your heart in the next 5-10 years. So if you believe that spending something, let's say, you know, there are programs like there used to be a program like work and study programs, for instance, like you pay a certain amount of money and they locate you in a different country. Sometimes it's worth it, because if you spend, let's say, 3 months or 6 months in, let's say, in Argentina or in Brazil, and you learn a language, there's no an experience in an organization in, let's say, in Buenos Aires or Sao Paulo, whatever, then that's actually that experience is priceless. You see what I mean? So some kind of volunteer activities are, but again, the question is sustainability. Is it sustainable? You cannot keep doing it in your entire life, right? So it's so then it's all about using your eyes of epiphany. Like there's some one thing. It's all about the kind of the building blocks. So what leads to the other one? It's like a domino effect, right? So I'm not sure if you guys are like into blockchain, but you know that's one of the new things, right? The kind of the digital currencies. Digital currency is just a digital currency, but the technology behind the digital currency is blockchain technology. So if you haven't looked into it, look into it, because it might change the world. It might change a lot of things that we are experiencing right now. People are now getting married on blockchain. You can send food to a different part of the world. It's notary services, even actually some kind of like volunteer positions, like they can be actually done on blockchain. And people in the blockchain, they're called the miners. So the people, so basically people who are validating the transactions between two people. And people who validate that transaction are earning money. It's like a volunteerism. So you volunteer to be a safety net between two people. You got my point? So this is a different kind of a solidarity system in a very horizontal framework. So I like it a lot as a kind of like as a metaphor again, because what we need to do right now is think in a horizontal way, not in a vertical way. Vertical is more about a hierarchy, but horizontal is about looking for networks, looking for people who can create a sense of solidarity. That's more empowering than anything. That is why a paid volunteership might be an example of that horizontal networking.
Thank you so much, Dr. Evren Talk.
You're welcome. Thanks, everyone. I look forward to having our next session, actually.
Inshallah, it was very productive and constructive talk.
Thank
Discussion was very fruitful with your valuable thoughts. We are eagerly looking forward to having you in our future talks and lectures, and we are so honored to have you. Also, I would like to thank our audience for their active participation as usual. We are greatly impressed by the quality of discussion and questions also. And also, I am beyond thankful for my dear colleagues, ICYF technical team, for the outstanding hard work. And I would like to invite our participants to join us for the next session. I think we will have another session from 5 to 6:30. Also with Dr. Evren Talk. The topic will be Universal Volunteering Ethics, Global Citizenship Education. So please join us for the next session. And don't forget to follow our page on social media. Don't hesitate to share your thoughts and feedbacks with us. I think it will be my last moderation before the end of the Ramadan. So I will meet you after Eid, inshallah. So Eid Mubarak for all of you. And thank you so much for your contribution. See you soon, inshallah.
Just one thing.
Yes.
Merve mentioned that actually it's at 5:30, not 5.
In the program, it's written 5, but if Merve mentioned it's 5:30, she is the one in charge of the program, so it will be 5:30.
Okay. Because in my program it's 5 as well, so that's why I wanted to confirm with you, because she wrote 5:30. So, but anyways, I am okay in either way.
Okay, let me ask Merve again, and I will be in touch with you and with the participants.
Okay, sure.
Thank you so much, Dr. Evren.
Thanks for your moderation. It was marvelous. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.